Hey everybody, welcome to the NewtoCoaching community tonight. Tonight we are talking about 3 ways to kickstart your coaching cycles, and we're talking all about Kickstart Your Coaching Cycles, my new book, and how it can help you kickstart your coaching cycles. Are you getting the theme, friends? We are going to get coaching cycles started here tonight. I am so excited that you are out here in the comments with me. I see so many friends and familiar faces. Michelle Gonzalez. Hi, Ken, Stacy, Diane. Nice to see you guys. Hey, Rebecca. And I saw Alana, Sarah, and hey, Caprice. How's everybody doing out there tonight? I am so excited to be going live tonight to talk about this month's theme. We are talking about falling in love with coaching cycles, because coaching cycles is one of those things that about this time of year, your first year as a coach, you look around and you go, aren't I supposed to be doing this thing called coaching cycles? And what are those? You ask yourself, and you think you have not gotten started with something that you should have done. And you looking around going, I need somebody to help me get started with this. So that's what we are talking about tonight is, first of all, letting you know that you are not behind. It is okay if you have not started coaching cycles yet, but to help you get a leg up and get started with coaching cycles, this is actually the perfect time of year to finally get in the groove of that. How many of you just got off of fall break, or maybe you're about to go on fall break? We just hit our 9-week point. We just had our fall break, and now we're back into our second 9 weeks. So I'm sure some of you have had a break as well. And so coming off of a break, trying to get everything up and running again is a great time to focus on coaching cycles. So I'm going to share some strategies with you tonight that are going to be so helpful. So I'm so glad you're here. Let's do this together. I'm going to ask you a question in just a second. So get ready with your comments. I love seeing all the different types of coaches we have and from where we're from. We've got Melanie at Math Coach. We've got Math and Science. Hi, Val. Stacy just got back from break. Okay, good. Kindergarten ELA coach. We have a variety, and that is the win. So let me tell you a little bit more about Kickstart Your Coaching Cycles. This is my brand new book, just came out on October 1st. So I know that many of you did get a copy, so you can drop me a got mine if you got your copy. I am going to be sharing some strategies straight out of this book tonight, because they are going to be the things that you can grab hold of and actually use right away this week to get started with coaching cycles. So I really want you to have this as a guide if you need it. If you're looking for it and you need to know, just go to kickstartyourcoachingcycles.com. It'll take you to the Amazon link where you can order yours and have it in just a couple of days. So after we talk tonight, I will be pointing to a couple different spots. So if you do have your book and you brought it with you, which I see quite a few got mines coming in, then I'll be pointing out a couple pages you might want to look at. So I am really excited to finally share this book with you. This book was written for the NewtoCoaching community, and it was really written by the NewtoCoaching community in a lot of ways, because stories of members are in here. And this all started with some live streams in the NewtoCoaching group of talking about the organic coaching cycle that I shared as a strategy for new coaches to latch onto. And that started as some live streams, and now it's a book for you to take with you and start using. So I am so excited to finally be able to share it with you and get it in your hands, because so many have asked for it. So kickstartyourcoachingcycles.com if you're looking for that. A lot of got mines. A lot of got mines. Everybody's got theirs ready to go. All right, digital and print, got it, ready to go. Okay. So let's start with, how are you feeling about coaching cycles right about now? So on a scale of 1 to 3, okay? So if you are feeling like, if you're a 1, you're more in the area of you haven't really gotten started yet. You're still really confused about, what is this coaching cycle thing? How do I get started? How could I possibly have time in the middle of my coaching duties to be doing this thing? If you're a 2, maybe you have gotten a couple of coaching cycles started. Maybe you've got one teacher who you've been able to meet with one-on-one. Maybe you feel like you're making a little bit of progress, but you're still like, how would I do a lot of these? And how many am I supposed to do? You still have a lot of questions. Or if you're a 3, maybe you've been doing this a little bit longer. Maybe you've got 1, 2, 3, coaching cycles up and running. Maybe you've been meeting with teachers. Maybe you're feeling like you're starting to catch a groove at this point in the year. So let me know where you are. I even see a 1.5 out there, so you can put some points in there if you feel like you're in between. 2 with a little asterisk. Feel free to elaborate there, Jenny. A 1. We've got some 1s. We've got some 2s. Okay. All right. This is really helpful because I want to make sure we're kind of coming in at the baseline of even answering the question, what is a coaching cycle? Because that is sometimes one of the things that is the most confusing place to start for new coaches. I did not put a 0 on purpose, Sybil, but I was thinking if you're feeling like a 0, you can say it. It's okay. So don't worry. This is your safe space. If you are feeling like a 0 about coaching cycles, I'm actually just so glad you're here because I want to help you get over that hump. That is what we're doing tonight. I want you to break through with that. By the way, I forgot to mention that this is a 2-part series that we're doing. Tonight, I'm talking about 3 ways you can get started, giving you some tips from the book. And then next week, I am joined by the amazing Buzzing with Miss B. Chrissy Beltran is going to come on with me and share some of her strategies to use during coaching cycles. So if you don't follow her yet, she's amazing. She has her own podcast. You can definitely find her on Instagram, but she also has a Facebook group. Buzzing with Miss B is what you can search and you'll find all of her stuff. So she has lots of great resources for coaching cycles too. So I invited her to come join me next week. So even as we leave tonight, if you don't feel like you have every answer to every question, that's okay. You can reach out to me, but also we're going to go live again next Tuesday and keep the conversation going. So I hope you will be here for the 2 parts of this series. All right. 1 to 2-ish. I posted 1, realized I'm like a little bit more of a 2. I love it. You're good. You're good where you want to be. Okay. 1 to 2-ish, 1 to 2-ish. Okay. Yes, she is great. So Buzzing with Miss B is coming on next Tuesday, same time, same place. You'll meet us here. Okay, 1 to 2-ish means I think we should really just start with the basics, friends. And I want your comments coming in. I want your questions coming in throughout. If you have a question, please don't hesitate to just pop it in the comments and I will just roll with those questions as I can. So let's start with what is a coaching cycle. Okay. So what is a coaching cycle? And I've done a lot of research in writing this book. It's so fun to do all the research. And I found that a coaching cycle is something a little more simple than what we make it to be. We make it out to be something that's very complicated, something that has all of these steps that we have to do. But what a coaching cycle is, and if you have the book with me, I'm on page 49. A coaching cycle is actually just a protocol for one-to-one coaching, friends. So when you are doing instructional coaching, especially if you start your work for the first year, you might have started with professional development. That's probably what you started during in-service. You probably were asked to host some professional development, and you were probably really kind of focused on group teaching, like teaching a group of teachers how to do this work. I'm going to share a slide. So let me just pop that up here real quick. Let me see if it'll come up like it's supposed to. There we go. Let me present it. Okay. Present. There it is. Okay. So let's look at this little circle here. So you're with coaching, you're doing PD, your professional development. Maybe you're leading PLCs and working with teachers in grade level teams, or maybe some cross-curricular teams if you guys have a really advanced PLCs. And then at the bottom of the circle, you have all the other duties that are assigned to you. And these are the things that are important. Some of them will drag us away from coaching a little bit though. And so this is kind of like a target, like your red circles, but I did yellow. And on the outside of the target are some of the things that you might hit. But on the inside of the target, the center of the target, the work that you want to be doing as an instructional coach as much as possible is one-on-one coaching. And the reason for that is because we can make a lot of progress with PD and leading our teachers through PD. We can make some progress with meeting with them in PLCs, and we can move them forward as a group. But what you will find very quickly is that every teacher really needs different levels of support. I mean, how many of you have found this to be true, right? Teachers need different levels of support. And so what you'll want to move towards is supporting them individually one-on-one. And that work, when you're working with a teacher one-on-one, that is where you get the idea of a coaching cycle. And the idea of the cycle part comes from continuous touch points with a teacher. Now, in some of the models that are out there, like Jim Knight's amazing impact cycle, Diane Sweeney has her model, these models have given you as a coach like the steps for how you could lead a coaching cycle. But really, you're just connecting with a teacher over time and moving her forward, especially towards a specific instructional goal that she has set, student-centered goal, or a goal around her instruction. So as you are reading through the book, it'll kind of explain that. And the organic coaching cycle, which is what I explain in this book, is just how are you making those relational connections happen. So it's a series of relational touch points that advance an instructional goal. And what I have found in my work for 10 years as an instructional coach is that as much as we love a good protocol and steps and checklists and forms and everything, what actually happens in the day-to-day work of coaching teachers is that it is much more organic than process. So it's much more of me running down the hallway to go see one teacher, passing that other teacher that I was talking to yesterday, and her giving me an update on something that happened with her students, and me having like a quick connection with her in the hallway before I'm going on to the next teacher. Now, I still want to get in a meeting with that teacher to hear more about what's going on. But the organic nature of this work is that you are not always functioning in a very formal meeting. It starts here and it stops here, and it's much more relational than that in the work. And so what we're trying to do when we're talking about coaching cycles is figure out how you can really work at the individual level with teachers and actually help them move forward with something. And then what I'm giving you as well is the relational touch points, and specifically like the process for like, how do I start? How do I enroll a teacher? How do I get her interested in this work? So a coaching cycle is an ongoing relational touch point with teachers around a student-focused goal or an instructional goal, and it can happen more organically than you think. And I think when we hear about this process, you're going to go like, well, yeah, that is kind of how it works. So it really just happens like I see her in the hallway, or she stops me and wants to ask me a question. And then all of a sudden, we're kind of continuing our touch points around the thing we've been working on. So coaching cycles can be very formal, but they don't have to be formal to be effective. And that's one of the things that I've really anchored to in the organic coaching cycle is it doesn't mean we're throwing the forms out the window. It doesn't mean we're throwing the protocol out the window. What we're doing is realizing that this work is a lot more relational than we actually realize, and we think it's a little bit more about process and checklists. And so what you can do with the organic coaching cycle is use the relationship that you're building with a teacher and turn that into one-on-one work together. So what is a coaching cycle? Okay, juggling 5 coaching cycles right now can feel like a lot. Coaching cycle, page 49, a protocol, progress. Okay, good. So go ahead and let me know about how, if you have had a teacher who you might feel like you're working one-on-one with, but you're not sure you're in a coaching cycle with her yet, okay? Because I bet that you have been talking to a teacher and you've had a couple of touch points with her about a student or a curriculum question, or something where you're working with her, you're kind of coaching her, but you're not really sure if you're like in a coaching cycle yet. So I bet you have a couple of those. So I want to hear a little bit about maybe a teacher or two who you feel like you've connected with a few times, because those are some of the ones that we're going to go after first. So somebody asked, We have the coaching cycles thing. Somebody was asking about coaching cycles and like how they flow. So in some models, you'll have something more official going on where you might enroll a teacher into a coaching cycle and tell her ahead of time that this is like a 6-week coaching cycle or even a 12-week coaching cycle. And you'll tell her we're going to meet for this many weeks and we're going to work on this and work on that. And so those types of things can be set up in advance. There's nothing wrong with setting them up in advance. But the idea of an organic coaching cycle to help you get started with a teacher is to also help you think about just working with a teacher week by week. So one of the things that I do talk about in Kickstart Your Coaching Cycles is the idea of starting a coaching cycle by asking them if they want to meet again next week. We're going to talk about how you get to that first meeting in a second, but thinking about a week-to-week rhythm with a teacher who you are really moving from a hallway chat around a curriculum question or a student question or some student data that she had, those kind of things, moving them into a meeting structure that is then you meeting with her every week. And that can actually last longer than 6 weeks because maybe you guys are still working on things, or it may just be a few weeks. But in between your touch points, if you let's say you meet with her on Tuesday and you talk about what you guys have, what she is working on, what she's trying to do in her classroom. Maybe it's a classroom management strategy or a particular lesson she's trying to implement. And then later that week, maybe on Thursday, you go to her class and you help her to implement what she's doing. And you become a partner in her classroom. And then next Tuesday, you meet with her again to keep the conversation going. To make coaching cycles a little less formal, you can think about just using a week-to-week strategy. So if you are juggling 5 coaching cycles right now, you can think about meeting with them once a week and trying to get into their classroom in between those weekly meetings. Yes, I feel that way. When do you know to initiate the coaching cycle? Okay, good. That is a really important question. Let's talk about how we enroll them in, and then we'll talk about like the moment where it really becomes a true coaching cycle. We've gone from like a coaching conversation to a coaching cycle. We have something we're working on together. That's when you have a student-focused or instructional goal that you've identified. But we've got to get her there first. So let me give you a couple strategies for kickstarting the coaching cycle, getting a teacher started with, excited about, or enrolling her into kind of the first meeting of a coaching cycle. So let me see, I have a couple other questions. A teacher has asked me about supporting comprehension in 2nd grade. I gave her some resources I used, offered to plan together. She wants to, but she feels like there's just never enough time. There isn't enough time. This is something that coaches are going to be, that you fight often, is not having enough time, especially if your school does a lot of other PLC meetings and other time that you're taking, maybe they're planning time for. And so we've got to try and move those conversations from resource providing into a first meeting. And I would try and do that even casually and try and helping them know, like, this is not like an hour-long meeting. This could be 15 to 20 minutes as a starting point for you to come in during planning, meet before school or after school if you're allowed to find a time where you just want to listen to what she has on her mind, and you want to offer to her a little bit more time to talk about supporting comprehension in 2nd grade. You have to find a little more time to talk to her, and you may just have to be persistent in asking her to meet and continue to say, what about tomorrow? Could we do tomorrow? I've been working on engagement strategies by deconstructing units with a few new teachers weekly. Okay, Stacy, I'm pretty sure you're in a coaching cycle on that one. If you're meeting with them weekly and you're working on a specific strategy, have you gone to see them execute the strategy in their classroom? If you add that step and you're actually going to the classroom, partnering with them, and then allowing yourself to like have a reflection conversation to help them see what they still want to continue to tweak, you're in a coaching cycle, friend. Hey, Karen. 2nd, 3rd grade teacher working with her students in writing. We started comparing grade level standards. Then we looked at student work and we used the rubrics we made. Finally, we wanted to check in and see the scores match the rubrics. Now we're moving on to writing another genre of writing. Karen, You're in a coaching cycle, friend, because you have worked through an entire process of, executing a unit together, identifying what the goal is. And then she's like, hey, well, you want to keep working together on this next genre that we're doing? And you're like, yes, I would love to. And that's how your coaching cycle can feel more organic and just naturally lead into the next work with a teacher. So those are amazing. Move from resource provider to coaching roles, support one-on-one, and try to be consistent. It is hard. I'm not saying it's the easiest thing. That's why we're going to look for our runners. I've been working with a second grade teacher on a math workshop model. So she and I visited another classroom and we debriefed, and I'm letting her have time this week to adjust and go back next week to check in and coach on the spot if necessary. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. That coaching cycle is up and running. I love taking a teacher to another classroom as a way to start a coaching cycle, because she might see something in that classroom across the hall that she wants to try, and then you can help her to implement it. All right. So I said that we would have three ways to kickstart your coaching cycles tonight. So I do want to point out a couple of ways for you to think about starting if you don't even know where to start. And that is really okay. So one of the first things you need to think about when you're starting coaching cycles and you've not had an opportunity to do it yet is the relationships that you've built so far. So in the book, I share this idea of the runners, okay? And the runners are the teachers who are actually most willing and interested in working with you. There is a subgroup of teachers, even if you feel like there is some that have been a little bit less interested in working with you, there is a subgroup of teachers who is willing to talk to you and maybe do a coaching cycle with you. You are just probably thinking that they're actually really good teachers, and you're thinking, oh, well, they don't need any help. I call those the runners because they're usually going above and beyond and doing the work in a way that makes you feel like, well, what would I even coach her on? But those teachers are actually a great place to start. So one of the first ways you can think about where am I going to start my coaching cycles is to think about working with the runner teachers. And a lot of you have just mentioned the conversations that you've had with runner teachers so far. You have started to work with a teacher. She's been willing and interested in letting you in, and you've been able to turn that into a coaching cycle. You even started doing data collection and things like that. I have been doing a push-in. Basically, I met with each teacher and asked how I can support within the class. I either work with the teacher or students twice a week, and I try and touch base at the end of the week. That is awesome, Sybil. That seems to be working for you for sure. If you asking each teacher what you might be able to help with is helpful. Thinking about some ways that you can partner. I've been supporting teachers with engagement and classroom management by observing, giving feedback, and then making follow-up appointments. So I guess I'm in a few coaching cycles. I would say that if you are doing a touch point that is a weekly meeting and you're going into the classroom and you guys are working on a specific goal together, you're not just walking through and giving kind of like feedback that is a little bit more like just walk through cold feedback, but you're working through a specific goal together. Like for like the one that Karen mentioned, where they were taking data about comparing grade level writing standards. And then that's the project, the goal that they are working on together. So try and be thinking about what you're doing together. If it feels like right now you're just doing a lot of like walking through and giving feedback. But as you are doing that, you are building relationships, you're talking to them, you're meeting with them, you're doing some follow-up appointments. Those things are getting you going. Let me see. How do you document the progress made in the less formal? Yes, this is always a question. Okay, I'm going to get back to documenting a little bit towards the end. I've started a coaching cycle with an ELA 4th grade teacher. I modeled a mini lesson, then went back that afternoon, watched her do the lesson. We're branching out, gradually releasing it to her with me in the room? Yes. Okay, good. So you are working on a specific strategy and you modeled for her, and now she's trying it, and you're going to continue to use that strategy together until she gets it right. And you're maybe tracking some data about how that strategy is working. Those are when you are in coaching cycles, when you are partnering together in working towards a goal, project, unit, specific like data point that you're working on together. Okay, so the first way you're going to try to kickstart your coaching cycles is to chase after the runners. And there is a whole chapter about the runners in the book, and it will tell you a little bit more about them. But basically thinking about the teachers who are willing and interested, even if in your mind they are great teachers, they don't need any help, those are actually the best ones to start with, because what they are going to do is they're going to want to try something new or be really mindful of something that they're trying to achieve, because they're probably thinking a lot about their data or their students. And then you coming in and partnering with them is like them being able to duplicate themselves in class. And they're like, oh my gosh, I just got a body double. This is amazing, because you guys both can work at a really high level together. And so my very best coaching cycles that lasted for the longest, one of them lasted for 5 full years. No joke. We met every week for 5 years, were with the runners. And so sometimes we think initially, especially if your principal or somebody is telling you to go and coach the teachers who need the most help, who we feel like we've marked as needing the most improvement. We're not saying we're leaving those teachers behind, but most of the time we think we're supposed to go there. We're supposed to go work with those teachers because they're the ones who need to be fixed. And we often get told to work over there. That's a difficult place to start as a new coach, because that's probably going to be a pretty quick, resistant situation just because of everything that you have going on. So if you're being asked to do it, then you might have to do it, but don't forget about building relationships and going and asking a runner teacher if she will sit down for a meeting with you and talk about a goal that she has that you can support her in. So one of the first ways to think about coaching cycles differently is to chase after the runners. And to get going with that, Michelle Gonzalez says, current situation. Thank you for the clarification. I've been doing more feedback and walkthroughs. So feedback and walkthroughs is not a bad action. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we have to get to is partnership with the teacher. So if you're feedback and walkthroughs, that's a little bit, even though you eventually are having a conversation with her, it's a little bit one-sided. You're telling her what you think. What you want to get to is kind of a sitting across from each other going, we are going to work towards this goal together. And it's something that she has expressed she wants to do. And you have said you're going to be there to support her during. Now that looks different in a lot of different ways. So just all the different ways that it could look. But okay, number 2, the second way that you can kickstart your coaching cycles. If you have a PD coming up, you can use it as a Kickstart PD, friends. There is a chapter in the book about Kickstart PDs, but a Kickstart PD, in the way that it's really outlined in the book, and this is chapter 5, starting on page 91. Chapter 5 is where you get the idea of the design a Kickstart PD. So a Kickstart PD is actually supposed to be, the way that it's explained in the book, is something that is optional for that you've invited teachers to, that is not just for every teacher in the building, like your typical PD that you have once a month or something like that. And you can think about that model, because that can be a fabulous place to start coaching cycles, is to invite teachers to a hot topic type of PD. You're keeping it short and sweet, 30 minutes after school, 30 minutes during lunch, drawing them into something they want to learn about, and then quickly teaching that with the expectation of you following up with them and working with them one-on-one on how they would implement this in their class. So you can teach them an instructional strategy, you can teach them a tech tool, you can give them the PD and a pumpkin thing is super fun. I know that you've seen that. If you haven't yet, check out the NewtoCoaching group. You'll see some posts about that. Even today, I saw one. So if you try to look for a way to to invite teachers to a PD. And then you're like, but Allison, no one's going to come to an invitational PD. They hate PD. Okay. That could be true, unless you're remembering that you have runners in the building. So as long as you are building something that might attract your runners, you could get a few, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 teachers to show up to a PD like that. And that's actually ideal for a Kickstart PD, because if you get a few teachers to show up to something after school, and then later you follow up with each of them, and then each of them says that they want to keep working with you, you have just started coaching cycles with each of those teachers. And so if you have 2 teachers show up and you start 2 coaching cycles out of it, that's going to be worth it for you. And you can't be worried about all the ones who didn't want to come because maybe that wasn't their topic. Maybe it wasn't their day. Maybe they took their kids to the dentist. Who knows? But it wasn't because they, didn't like you. It was because that was just not the day for them to be there. But the ones who showed up, that's where you can find coaching cycles. So I have a great story in here of Michelle Rui and how she started pop-up PDs by providing some popcorn after school and inviting teachers to work on a topic that they had expressed that they wanted to learn more about. So a Kickstart PD could be an optional PD that you plan and offer teachers to come to. So that's an option. But if you have any PD coming up, so let's say you have a weekly PD. I know Michelle Gonzalez was telling me she has like a weekly PD that she has to host. And then maybe you have a monthly one. Maybe you just have one coming up next month. Thinking about that PD and using it as a way to follow up with teachers and enroll them into coaching cycles off of what you taught them at the PD. This is so important, friends, because I talk about this in the book. The research says that as much as we PD our teachers to death, that it actually isn't as effective as we want it to be. So PD alone is not really enough to transfer to their practice. So if you've got a room full of teachers and you're teaching them something important, a new curriculum piece, an instructional strategy, something that you want them to use, you're going to have to try and bridge that to one-on-one coaching if you actually want to help them implement it in their classroom. And so you can look for ways to follow up with them from that PD. Now, I have a secret trick for that too. And it's in the book as well, but it's also strategy number 3. So I'm going to tell you that in just a second. Your secret trick for how you follow up with them after a PD. Melody says, I saw the PD in a pumpkin. It's worth a try. I'm thinking about doing it during PLC instead of PD. That's perfect. That will work. You can definitely do that. You can also, a PD and a pumpkin is one of those things that is, they can opt into it. They can come by and pick up a pumpkin. They can scan a QR code and follow along. And they're supposed to like fill out a form at the end. And that's where you can follow up and say, I saw that you checked out the PD and a pumpkin. Do you want to try any of these strategies? And that could be a follow-up opportunity for you. I have several mini coaching cycles that I'm juggling to accommodate teachers in their schedules. I've divided my time into chunks for pre-conferences, observation, post-conferences. While conducting pre-conferences, I'm also doing observations and scheduling feedback time based on the goal in which they are working. Okay, good. You are keeping yourself busy. So I like to think about my teachers just like week to week, and that pre-conference, post-conference piece becomes a little less distinct. Like if you're going to meet with them on Tuesdays about what they did last Thursday, then we're kind of doing the post-conference and the pre-conference for the next conversation. So your coaching cycles eventually become just a meeting where you guys are planning the next thing you're doing together, and then you're going to partner together in the classroom, and then that next week you're going to meet again. And that's a combination of pre and post-conference, really, because you're going to do some reflection about how it went last week, and then what she wants to do this week. And then you plan ahead. So if it feels like those are feeling like very separate components, see if they come together for you in a weekly meeting, like just having that opportunity to reflect and prompt some of that reflection and then work towards planning the next steps. Okay, so the trick number 3 for the third way for you to start coaching cycles, and the trick of how you do this off of a PD that you're hosting, whether it's a Kickstart or just a whole faculty PD, is exit tickets, friends. Exit tickets, all right? Hashtag exit tickets. It's because they are going to be your new favorite trick. I like to call them the golden ticket, like Willy Wonka has to get into his chocolate factory, which, by the way, my kids are downstairs watching the new Wonka, the one with Timothy Chalamet in it. That one is so good. I mean, it's super musical and fun, but Timothy Chalamet, whose name I cannot seem to say, is so good. So if you've seen that one, tell me. So the golden ticket is what you are going to get from a PD. Now, here's what we can also think about using this golden ticket is another strategy because you can use it in other places. Okay, so an exit ticket is exactly what it is in the classroom. It is a way for you to collect information from your learners, your teachers, and what they took away from your PD. And so there's a couple of questions in the book, and I'll find the page for you. The Kickstart, the exit ticket questions are on page 109, 108, and 109. So these are just a few of the questions that you could try. But what was most useful for you? What do you want to try after today? What is your next step? What can you, what do you need to, what does it say? What can you take away to make room for this idea? What is one thing from today that you could use tomorrow? How will you implement this new strategy? Do you want to learn more about this? How can I help you? What questions do you still have? What do you want to work on next? So you're taking a few of these questions from this list and you're thinking about putting them onto an exit ticket. I'm talking about like 2 questions. This is just a list of options for you to pull from. But 2 questions on an exit ticket. Do it on a note card, or I've seen, I snapped a picture of it, but I didn't prep it on my slides. I've seen people just type up a doc that has a couple of spots for them to answer questions. And you're going to put those questions on there and have them fill those out as they leave at the end of the PD. And what this does for you is it gives you some information. First of all, it helps you know if your PD was helpful. Like, did they learn anything? What did they take away? I don't know they didn't really tell me how they felt about it. It gets you a little bit of feedback, not about you, but about you're asking them what was useful for you? What was your biggest takeaway? What's something that you found that you want to use right away? So you're asking them what was valuable? Tell me what was valuable. And then you're asking them, what is their next step? So you're asking them for something they say they want to do next. This is the golden ticket, friends. And this is where you can take that information. They write their name on it. They turn in their card on their way out, just like the students do when they use exit tickets. And now you have a stack of little follow-up cues that you can go by and see a teacher and you can say, hey, I saw you wrote on your exit ticket that you thought your next step would be to rework your writing rubric based on our conversation the other day. I would love to help you with that. Do you think you want to meet next Tuesday and we can start working on your writing rubric together? And that's where you take your PD content and you bridge it over to starting a coaching cycle, having that first coaching meeting. And then the other thing, exit tickets, this is still the third way you could kickstart your coaching cycles, is you probably, if you're using them in PD, I'll be pretty impressed, but I bet you aren't using them in your PLCs. So I am now going to encourage you to start doing exit tickets at the end of PLC. It might feel awkward. You might be like, they are going to roll their eyes at me. I don't care. It'll be worth it. I promise. When they come together for a PLC, they have individual needs. They have questions. They have different situations with their students in their classroom than other teachers. They often leave PLC going, I don't think this is going to work for my kids. Or this could work, but I think I need to adjust it for my kids. And so this is when you can have them write on an exit ticket at the end of PLC what kind of questions they are still thinking about. How will this work for your students? Anything that will cue them to write something useful on the card that then you will have. And you will be able to go one-on-one to each of these PLC members and say, hey, I noticed that the topic we were talking about, standards-based grading was really a big question for you, and you are still asking questions about how to put grades on the top of your paper and what you should do instead, I would love to meet with you about that and help you feel more comfortable with that. And I am now following up and asking and answering their direct question so that I can help them in their classroom with their student needs and their question. And that's when you take a group meeting from PD or PLC to one-on-one work, is when you start asking them how you can help them one-on-one with their exact needs and what they want to work on for their students. Those types of things will come out of a PLC conversation or PD, but not unless you're asking. And I think this is where, when I was early on in coaching, it was really hard to feel like I even knew what they were thinking when they left these meetings. And I just went, back to my desk and twiddled my thumbs, and no one came to talk to me. But I realized that I had to go to them and ask them what things they were thinking about or wanted to know more about. And the exit tickets were the thing that, once I added that component to my meetings or my PDs, I realized that I knew exactly what they were thinking. And I also knew how I could offer to help them in a more direct and clear way, not just like, hey, do you need anything? Like, no, you said you wanted to work on your writing rubric. I can help you with that. Let's meet next Tuesday. Okay. So that's one of the strategies that is really helpful. My colleague and I also put a feedback exit ticket form on our PDs. We do a Google form and they scan the QR code to access the form. You are doing amazing. You have so many great resources going on here. But yes, if you want to do a Google form, you can. I like the note cards because, that tactile sorting of them is really handy. But Google Forms is another thing I've used often. I finally made it. Hey, Lori. Volleyball game tonight. Wanted to hurry up and get home to get on. I'm so glad you rushed over to see us. Well, ask me your questions. Drop your thoughts so that we can answer them for you while we're here. Exit tickets are an amazing tool. Use it today at the end of staff presentation. We have grade level data days next week, and I'll incorporate exit tickets. Love it. Okay, good. So ask me questions about these 3 ways that you could kickstart your coaching cycles. We said, number 1, you could go after some runners. You could ask for a meeting with some runners. And when I say runners too, I did not mention this. This is also your new hire teachers. Okay. So they're probably pretty willing to receive some help. If you haven't already gotten in the door with them, then it's time for you to kind of knock on the door again and say, hey, I would really love to help you with what you have going on, and go ahead and schedule a time with them, because they might not ask for the help, but they really want it and they're not resistant. They just are overwhelmed. Right. And so they need you to do a little more like knock, knock, knock. I'm coming to meet with you. So it's okay if you've spent all this time building a relationship and you're now going to try and turn that into like, let's meet together to talk about that thing you mentioned last week. I really think I can help you with that. So going after your runners is strategy number 1. Number 2 is your Kickstart PD, which you can do as an optional PD, or you can use a PD that you have coming up and use that strategy that you're teaching, or whatever it is you're teaching in the PD, as the follow-up point. And the other thing that's nice about that is, let's say everybody's using Kagan strategies and you just taught some Kagan strategies. So now you're going to have an opportunity to go around to everybody and be like, hey, I'd love to hear how you're using the Kagan strategies. I'd love to see how that's looking in your classroom, helping you execute a certain one. So you can follow up with each teacher around this global thing that everyone is working on. So that is your Kickstart PD. And then your exit ticket strategy is at the end of your PD or at your PLCs, is to take the exit ticket that is information about what they want to work on next, what they're thinking about, so that you can follow up with them and you can ask them for a meeting. And in the book, there is a little script actually for the follow-up conversation. There's a chapter on that. The chapter is actually called The Follow-Up, and I have a script in here for what you literally say when you go and follow up with them. It is a very quick conversation. You don't have the meeting right then and there. You go in, you tell them, hey, I saw what you wrote on your note card. I can't wait to talk to you about that. and you have a plan for when you can meet with them when you go, and then you offer to schedule that meeting, and then you just leave. And then you have that next meeting the next Tuesday or whenever it's scheduled. So that whole little script is in the book. So you definitely want to get that. If you're doing the exit tickets and you're trying to figure out how to bridge those two conversations, the little script for your follow-up conversation, I've got that for you. It's in there. Okay, let's see. I am meeting with my first PLT group tomorrow. I heard they often disagree. Would you do a rose and thorn? What would a specific question be to ask as an exit ticket? I like the rose and thorn a lot. That is a fabulous one. I would do it though about like, especially if you just came off a break, it's a good time to do it. Rose, bud, thorn. So if you're like, what is going well? What are you working on? And then what is a thorn in your side? But just a more general question, not so much like in the team, and then allow that conversation to, as everybody shares, maybe to kind of help everybody build a little bit of empathy, because they probably have the same thorns and they probably have similar buds. And so the disagreeing maybe will, I'm not saying it'll go away, but it might level out when they all see that we're all on the same page with these things. Okay, I do want to talk about tracking coaching cycles because that was asked earlier. So I'll answer that in a second. What would a specific question be to ask on the exit ticket? The two questions that are, well, if you're at the end of a PLC meeting, what do you want to try next? And what questions do you still have would be good ones. Like, what questions do you still have after this meeting? I always want to know what questions they have when they're leaving a meeting. They won't say them out loud. So it's good to get them on paper. And then what are you going to try next, or what's your next step? Those things allow you to, there we go. Those things allow you to follow up with what they said they wanted to do next, and then follow up with that. So, okay, what is this one? I have then them complete plus wishes, Gott's wants, most important point from today's meeting. Ooh, love that. That's really fun. I've tried exit tickets last year to see what they need in the classroom. However, majority of my teachers are not certified or have background in education. How can I make the exit tickets a little more narrowed? Because they may not know what they need help with. This is fabulous. Now, one way you can do that is by creating it as a Google form and giving them radio buttons to choose from, or checkboxes to choose from. That can help, because then they're not coming up with what they need help with. And you can just let them check some boxes. So that's one option. Another option is, if you just taught something, you want to ask them what they need help with on that thing. So like if you just taught a strategy, or you just went over some pieces of the curriculum, or whatever it is you just did in the PD, the narrowing is just ask them about that thing right there. And then the other thing I was thinking is, if they have, like, they are not certified and they don't have a background in education, they probably need work in classroom management. It's like just, the 101 that most new hires don't have. And so if you're going to narrow it, I would ask them a specific question like that. So you can ask something like, I would ask more about what the struggle is. Like, what do you want to, the question that I do have in the book is the jackpot question, is what do you want to see students doing differently? So that is useful because it will help you know, like, what the students are doing and how to propose a strategy. And then what struggles are you having in your classroom right now? And try and get them to answer some of those questions, because you'll see right away, like, oh, they're talking too much. Let's say they wrote, they're talking too much. You're like, she isn't using the callback and doesn't know how to bring them back together. She keeps yelling, hey guys, right? So you know a strategy that can help her with that, but she needs to tell you what the problem is so you can come with a strategy. So try to ask more about that maybe or may not be very clear. Sorry. Just started 2 coaching cycles with 2 preschool teachers. I went in one class today. I was completely welcomed in the classroom by the teacher and the kids. We had a great debrief. So great. What did she want to work on with you, Lori? I'm so excited to hear more about that. Okay, so let's talk about tracking, because up here we had questions about like, was it this one? There it is. Hi, Kim. How do you document the progress made in these less formal coaching cycles? We are using the student-centered coaching model. We are encouraged to use a results-based coaching tool. With informal cycles, documentation of the tool becomes tricky. Not as tricky as you think. I don't think Hope Chapman is here, but she shared this week in the Breakthrough Circle community, which is my inner circle mastermind group, that she has used that form before. And she talked a little bit about how she's still doing all the process pieces behind the scenes. She's just not doing them as upfront with teachers. And so usually when you are documenting a coaching cycle, if you're asked to use a certain form, or if you're just going to document it on your own, you need to realize that every touch point that you have with this teacher is a part of the cycle. And so you're documenting all the touch points that you've had with her in the process. So ideally, we're talking about a weekly meeting, a classroom visit, a weekly meeting, a classroom visit. But let's say you also saw her in the copy room, and while she was making copies, you talked to her about the writing rubric that you guys have been working on, and she asked you a question about it. You are coaching her in the copy room. It still counts. So those types of things is just realizing that these different moments of interaction with this teacher are all counting towards that form that you need to fill out. So if it's something that they expect you to bring to a coaching cycle with a teacher, that's okay. You can do that. Or if it's something that's really a little more behind the scenes and you're just keeping that documentation for coaching for you, maybe for your district, then you can use that form to document those things. And then you can have that to keep track of. Now, one of the things that I do is once we get into a coaching cycle and we've identified a goal and we're going to work on something together, that's usually the trigger point for really starting a coaching cycle, is once you have an instructional goal and something that you are really working on together in the classroom that's going to require me to be a part of the classroom. It's going to require me to collect some data for us to figure out our starting point and our ending point. Once we have a goal, we can do that work. So we will obviously schedule a meeting, and then I'll start a Google Doc. And it's not very fancy. I even think there is a link to it on my Track Coaching Cycles page. So I'll post that in just a second. But it's a Google Doc that just has the date in it and what type of meeting we had. So like today's date, and then we had a weekly meeting, and then what we talked about during that time. And so I'm just documenting all of our touch points. And usually at the end of those meetings, we'll have some next steps. So I'll put in the box like next steps for the meeting are, we're going to implement this during class on Thursday, and we're going to track this particular data. So I'm just documenting like what we've decided to do. And by doing that in a simple Google Doc, keeping track of what we're doing, I've noted all of those touch points. And I do try and go back and add the touch points that maybe were a little more organic. Hallway, somebody grabbed me and it wasn't a scheduled meeting, those types of things, I'll go back and I'll add those. And she has access to that doc, and so do I, so she can add to it as well. So documenting is still happening, even though it's an organic process. It's just that the teacher is feeling like this is a lot more relational. Like I have started this relationship with this teacher through multiple touch points, and now it's the natural next step for us to work together. And so once you start working together, then you've initiated your coaching cycle, and you can start documenting it using the forms that you have, or just a simple Google Doc. So something more simple than you think most of the time is totally fine, unless your district has something that they've required you to use, then your tracking can be simple. So on my website, NewtoCoaching.info, I'm typing this in here, /track coaching. I believe this is the link. There it is. Okay, so this link will, I don't know if you'll be able to click it from here, but you can type it in. And it has a video of Casey Watts and I talking through how to track your coaching cycles. And it gives you some strategies that you can use using Google Docs, and then some links to how you can use the different features in Google Docs to make your own tracking pages. And then there are a couple other shared tools that other members of the NewtoCoaching have shared. And there's one, has anyone used Notion before? Jeff Bradbury designed this whole instructional coaching, like virtual organizational world for you inside of Notion. So if you're interested in using his template, he has that. And then Chrissy Beltran, Buzzing with Miss B, has some resources on there too. So there's a lot of resources for you to think about how tracking will work for you and what you really need, like what are the essentials. In the book, there are these pages at the end of each chapter called Tips for Tracking Coaching Cycles. And I tell you my simple process for tracking coaching cycles and really what stage you are at the coaching cycle process, and then what you might be doing to document or track that. So there's some tracking pages in here throughout the book at the end of each chapter to kind of help you see like what you might do at that stage or phase of the coaching cycle. All right, friends, we hit an hour somehow, some way, so I can't keep you too much longer, but you have to tell me what has been most useful for you tonight. What has been something you want to take with you when you leave, right? It's the exit ticket questions. So tell me what's your takeaway or what's most useful for you tonight. Put that in the comments for me, and I'll keep answering questions and looking at comments while you are typing that in, and more than happy to stay on a few more minutes, answer some more questions, help you get started. Lori says the pre-K teacher wanted help with student engagement during her morning meeting time, calendar, weather, and schedule. Oh, those pre-Kers. Are you like student engagement being like, let's learn how to sit still? Or are they not wanting to, like, are they not participating? So that's so sweet. And they're so little like that. I have a 5-year-old at home myself. She is pre-K this year, and she'll be kindergarten next year. And I don't know how they do it with all that many in the room at a time. It's a lot of movement all the time. Okay, so Melody said, Sybil said, Melody said, yes, classroom management is where you want to focus with those non-certified teachers for sure. Also, with the non-certified teachers, I didn't say this before. It wasn't quite the answer to your question, but I would take them on a learning walk to see another teacher teach. So we have a new teacher. She is certified, but she's brand new to teaching. And one of the things I'm going to do next week is take her to see some classes and some different environments. And so that she can get an idea of what different teachers, different tricks that teachers are using for classroom management to pull the class together. And I want her to see a variety so that she can figure out what is her way. What does she want to do? How do you want to do things? So think about taking them on a learning walk as well. That's also a really fruitful conversation for them to say, you know what I really want to try? I want to try that strategy that teacher used. And then you can latch onto that and say, great, let's meet next Tuesday and come up with a plan for how we're going to use that strategy. And then you're going to go to her classroom and see the strategy in action. And then you're in a coaching cycle. It's just gotten started all because you took her on a learning walk. So great. Okay. Exit tickets at the end of PD will change your life when it comes to getting coaching cycles started. Exit tickets, even at the end of PLC time, try it and just ignore them when they roll their eyes at you. Tell them that it's just so you can follow up with them. Like, you don't have to lie about it. You don't have to say like, oh, it's just for fun. Just be like, this is so I can follow up with you. I want to know what's on your mind. And having exit tickets at the end of PL, we're forbidden to use the term PD anymore. Oh, okay, Jenny. Professional learning it is. Thank you for describing coaching cycles and going over the tracking systems. I realize how to tighten up my cycles. And now that I'm doing better than I thought I was. You are doing so, so great. There was another question that I think you asked about about how do you ask feedback? How do you ask for feedback on a coaching cycle? I think was the question I saw. If it wasn't you, it was somebody else who asked. And that happens when you ask the teacher through the coaching cycle process, like what has been most useful to them, not just asking that question at the end of PD, but during a coaching cycle. And actually, at the end of each weekly meeting, I like to ask that question. What's been most useful for you? And what are you going to do next? Because those are ways to solidify what we decided and talked about in the meeting. Sometimes there can be a lot of things, ideas thrown out. And when you leave the conversation, you want them to latch onto something that they're going to say, this was what I wanted. This is what I took away from the meeting. And this is what I'm going to do next with it. And so using those questions, not just as exit tickets for PD and PLC, but also individual coaching meetings allows you to get some really good feedback. And those can just be like, just ask them and have them tell you. You don't have to have them write that down. You can write it down though, so you know what you're going to help them follow up on, because next week you're going to be back. Okay, we read that one. Okay, thank you. I'm able to access the coaching tracking resources through the link you provided. Now I can take time to read your book. Yes. Okay, it won't take long, y'all. This book is like, I guess it finally crossed the line of 200 pages, but it is a short 200 pages. I promise you that. And it is a really light read. It's like we went out to coffee together. Promise it's going to read like that. I worked really hard to get that tone right because I really wanted it to feel like you and I were just hanging out. So it won't take you long to read. I promise. Grab it and you'll be through it in just a week or so. Kickstart PD, using collaborative time as exit ticket, hoping to get some connections with that. Yes, use that this week. Like, just try this strategy this week and you will see that follow-up work for you right away. It's so fast when you realize what you're doing is asking them to come into a meeting. Do a mini PD and use the exit slip to follow up as means to initiate the coaching cycle. Yes, that is the strategy that the whole book is around. The idea of the weekly pop-up PD using exit tickets and PLCs. Remember the runners, Karen, don't you forget those runners. They're going to keep you, I call it refueled in the book, because when you are feeling like there's a lot of resistance around you, the best place to go refuel your tank is to hang out with some runners. Any conversation on a shared topic counts as coaching. Hashtag every conversation counts, Linda. That is so true. Brief sharing of info and follow up instead of a lengthy PD. This can be really useful for sure. Clarifying coaching cycles. I thought it was the same as a cluster or PLC cycles. Oh, okay, good. I'm glad that we got some clarity there. That is a win. That's a great idea to have another teacher for classroom management. Go see another teacher for classroom management. Questions to ask that lead into a coaching cycle. Those are in the book. This is recorded right now. I will pull it down and post it in the NewtoCoaching group so you can see it over there. I'll also send you a link to the replay. I don't want you to not have access. So you can come back and watch this if you want. You can obviously get the book and read a little bit more deeply, since I can only share so much in an hour. I missed the beginning. It is recorded. It is recorded and you can come back. So right when it ends, you can actually use the same link to come back and watch it again. So just go back to that same link and you'll be able to watch the replay immediately, but I will pull it down and post it in the NewtoCoaching group. So you can also watch it there as a replay and get the book and follow along. So let's do that. Offering optional PD sessions as a coaching cycle jump off is a great idea. I'm about to offer a pop-in PD to share engagement strategies. The exit ticket at the end of PLC meetings is a winner. So far, it has been a winner. I want you to take all of these strategies, friends, and I want you to use them this week. I know it's already Tuesday. I know it just came off of fall break, but I bet you can turn one conversation into one coaching cycle this week, because all you have to do is get one teacher to say yes to a meeting with you. And that is going to get you started on the coaching cycle. It's not as hard as we think. You don't have to get them to agree to 12 weeks in advance. All you have to do is get them to agree to one meeting, get a great conversation going, figure out what you guys are going to work on together, work on something together, and then meet again next week and start tracking some of that work. It is not as formal as it seems. I promise. I am your biggest cheerleader. If there is any question that I can answer for you as you are thinking about kickstarting your coaching cycles, I would love to do that. So post in the NewtoCoaching group or send me a DM. I would love, love, love to hear from you. If you got the book, make sure you snap a picture of yourself with it so that I can see that you got the book. And next week, I'm going to be going live again with Chrissy Beltran and Buzzing with Miss B, and she and I are going to share some strategies for how to coach teachers in coaching cycles. She has some great strategies to share. She also has amazing resources. Again, mentioned her TPT store is also a great place for you to get some forms and things if you feel like you want something a little more structured to work from. But the thing that you need to hear is that this is not so far off for you. It's not something that you can't do just this week. And if you also feel like, oh my gosh, I just haven't done this yet, don't worry, you're not alone, and we will help you through it. So coaching cycles, kickstarting your coaching cycles, that's what we're doing together. I am so glad we got to hang out tonight. I can't wait to hear how it goes for you. Please make a post in the NewtoCoaching group if you have a great result from an exit ticket or a conversation this week. We just want to celebrate that you're kickstarting coaching cycles around here, because if we're doing coaching cycles, friends, we're impacting environments that students are learning in. We are impacting instruction, we're impacting student learning, and we're impacting that student data. So doing the one-on-one work is where you will actually see the most fruit, and the most bang for your buck. So let's get out there and do one-on-one work with teachers. Okay, friends, I cannot wait to hear how it goes. So I expect to be hearing from you, and I'll see you next Tuesday with Buzzing with Miss B right here, same time, same place. Bye, friends.